Okay, hello everyone, and welcome to another episode of Geeked Podcast, emanating from Area 51, not from the usual studio location where I record. Uh, every week we get together to chat for an hour or two about everything from film, television, music, books, comics, games, toys, and sports. My name is Mike.
Justin,
Jordan.
Jordan.
The music provided in our intro and outro is from Mevio's Music Alley. You can check it out at music.mevio.com. If you would like to contact us, there are several ways that you can do so. You can email us at geekedpodcast@gmail.com. That's geeked spelled Geeked podcast@gmail.com. You can like us on Facebook under Geeked Podcast. You can follow us on Twitter at Geeked Podcast. You can leave us a voicemail on Skype by reaching out to Geeked Podcast. Keep in mind that nobody will answer when you call, so please just leave a message. You can subscribe to the show via our Podbean website at geeked.podbean.com. You can also subscribe to us via iTunes. Just search for Geeked Podcast. You can also rate us and review our show on iTunes. Please do so, and while we can't guarantee it, we'll do our best to work your suggestions into the show. And if you reach out to us in any of these formats, we'll do our best to work your questions or comments into the show. You can also find all of our contact and subscription information in the show notes each week. So what's going on, guys? What's new?
What it is?
Just enjoying this nice long weekend here. So
Yeah, I feel you there, dude. I have needed the long weekend, man. It has been hectic as hell at work.
Yeah. I
Go ahead, Jordan. Did we lose you?
oh, did I lose you guys?
Yeah, for a
There you
moment.
are. Oh man, I don't know what's going on. So yeah, I used Friday to as an opportunity to take my dad and my uncle out to see Let's Be Cops again. It's just as funny the second time.
yeah,
Did
yeah.
you
Like I
go?
said, I think that those two main actors have a lot of chemistry on the Mindy project or the new girl.
Yeah.
And I'm looking forward to seeing it. Hopefully, I can catch it when it gets to DVD or Blu-ray. So
Right on.
It's a good one.
Right on. So yeah, we started last week with trying out a new show format here, where we kind of hit on some current event topics here before we get into the meat of our show this week. And actually, this week we're kind of flying off the cuff here. We decided that we were going to go ahead and do a discussion, our main discussion this week on taking a look back at the previous generation games. For instance, games from the PS3, Xbox 360, Nintendo Wii. So we're going to take a look back at those and kind of give our thoughts on or on the video games of yesterday, if you will. But yeah, so like last week, we did go ahead and try out that new format where we were talking about some current topics here. So do you want to go ahead and start us out, Justin?
sure. Well, I think this will be a recurring theme that Justin's just overly critical of everything and shits all over the stuff that he continues to watch each week. Um, but last week I did talk about The Leftovers. The season finale should have aired tonight, but they delayed it a week because HBO are bastards. Um, but last week's episode was really great. Like I said, the concept of the show is people dealing with this mass disappearance, and last week they kind of dived back into some of the main characters' lives before the actual event that kind of the catalyst of the entire show. So, really impactful and really delivered on what I want that show to deliver on. So, like I said, I still recommend that show. If the finale does not deliver, I will definitely be back to report and tell you to avoid it, because if it's as frustrating as the finale of Lost, I have a feeling most people will hate it. Although I don't hate Lost, I want to throw that out there. So, and then my other main thing here is to shit all over the finale of True Blood. Um, I'm assuming that Mike probably absolutely hates this show.
I have actually never bothered to watch it, man. But But then again, like I've told you guys many times before, did not have any premium stations until recently. I just we never had them, so
Well, I mean, the first season and even the second season were really strong. I mean, created by Alan Ball, the guy that did 6 Feet Under, which is one of the best series of television ever. 6 Feet, and obviously they don't have a lot in common, but Alan Ball really used this concept of vampires, quote unquote, coming out of the coffin and making themselves known to the general population, and trying to kind of what they call mainline in the show or integrate themselves into society. And then obviously, you have race relations, you have and a strong allegory to homosexuality and the stigma that's attached to those relationships kind of tie themselves closely into what the show is trying to do with vampires. But the first two seasons were really strong. I believe this was its sixth season and final season, and the finale aired last Sunday, and it was just a steaming pile of shit. Um, it was, I mean, I don't even know where to start because I don't understand how a show that's basically an allegory for homosexuality. Like I said, I mean, obviously there's lots of popular culture that touches on that topic. I mean, X-Men itself, obviously we look at it now and say, hey, Bryan Singer's first and second X-Men, like talking about homosexuality, right? So, while I like the fact that it was able to pull off that allegory and tell a story that kind of created empathy for something that a lot of people don't understand, especially in the South. In their finale, they didn't have the one person on their cast that identifies as a homosexual say one fucking word. He wasn't on the show at all, except for in the final scene. And really, the main crux of the show has been this relationship between the main protagonist, which is Sookie Stackhouse, played by Anna Paquin, and a vampire played by Bill Moyer. He's a English stage actor that got cast on this show. I guess they're together in real life. I never really realized that until my wife, who's kind of up on the celebrity gossip train, caught me up on that whole entire thing. But the whole show kind of begins with Sookie Stackhouse having this ability to read people's minds and being a telepath. And for some reason, she can't read vampires' minds. So she's kind of inexplicably drawn to this one vampire in particular. And obviously, there's lots of love triangles and breakups and makeups. It's kind of a cheesy soap opera. And in the final, or in the finale here, I'm going to spoil what happens in the finale here. I'm sure that neither of you care. But if anybody is listening, turn it off for a second. But in the fucking finale, well, this final season, they introduced this virus, this illness that vampires were coming down called hepatitis V, and
there's a whole movie about that, I think. It was with the guy from Jurassic Park. It was the King Vampire or something.
No, don't.
A couple years ago.
Yeah. To be honest, I'm not entirely sure what your reference is.
Jordan. Yeah, I don't remember the name of the car. The movie. I know the car was like they had to paint the windows black and drive from the inside because vampires can't be out.
Oh, right. That was. Did it have Ethan Hawke in it?
Maybe.
Where they like basically, yeah, that's where like vampires have taken over the world. Yeah. There's lots of cool sci-fi concepts like the vampires were drinking coffee, and instead of like cream and sugar in their coffee, they'd put like, blood in their coffee.
Right.
I can't remember what the show was called. Daybreakers, Watcher, something like that.
Something like that. But wasn't it a virus or something?
Yeah. I think in that the like human resistance had somehow created some kind of virus that was wiping out the vampires or something in that movie.
Yeah.
But yeah, in this show. I guess I should have mentioned as well, one of the main reasons that vampires are able to, quote-unquote, come out of the coffin is this introduction of this product called True Blood, which is a synthetic blood. Therefore, vampires can come out and say, "Hey, we're not going to drink, the blood of people anymore. We're going to drink this." Anyway, we're spending way too much time on this shit. On the finale of the show, they had the main protagonist, Sookie Stackhouse, kill the vampire that she was in love with because he was sick and refused to accept the treatment. This Deus Ex Machina of this cure that they introduced 2 episodes from the end of the series. It was like, hey, we have a cure. And so everybody was like, hey, Vampire Bill is going to get healed. And no, he just decided he didn't want to do that. And it was all a sacrifice because he wanted Sookie to live a normal human life.
Sure.
So, but fuck that show. Seriously, it's been really bad. It's been really. I mean, it is a cheesy, schlocky. I know. I'm just crazy like that. If I start something, I usually want to see it out to the end. Sometimes I can kind of, divert my attention away from it. But most shitty shows that I start watching, I'll watch until they're canceled. So unless it's Marvel Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., which is so bad, I had to stop watching it. So
you're torturing yourself, man. You're like the Chicago Cubs fan that's been waiting for eons.
Well, I mean, but at least the Chicago Cubs fans like the team. I hated True Blood, but I watched it every single week. I was so happy when it ended.
Glutton for punishment is what we call that.
And I know Jordan was a fan of Dexter, and he even kind of liked the finale of Dexter, but the finale of Dexter is kind of regarded as not a very good finale, and I would say that the finale of Dexter was better than this finale. It was just bad, truly terrible.
It seems like there seems to be something that's plaguing the premium channels as far as their finales are concerned. Like, weren't people bitching about the finale of The Sopranos also?
Well, that's kind of infamous for I never watched The Sopranos. It's definitely on my list of shame, but I know how the series concludes. And actually this week, there was an article that came out from the writer of the show kind of addressing, and he didn't really answer as to whether or not Tony Soprano died at the end of the series. But it brought that back up into conversation as to what was going on in that finale. But it was kind of one of those cliffhanger finales, kind of just like hey, this is the way this mob organization works. So,
well, and I think like this year and last year, so many shows have concluded. Breaking Bad and Dexter and True Blood, and it's hard to wrap up a show and make everybody happy. And I think everyone's complaining. Even the sitcoms. How I Met Your Mother, that finale nobody liked. And I don't think anybody likes to see the end, and I don't think people like to see exactly how it ends up. And The Sopranos did the other, they went the other way. They led you up to a point in the story, and then cut you off. And everyone I've talked to that has watched that has a different interpretation of what happens next. And it's like a dozen possible endings to The Sopranos, and it could be any of them, or nothing. But I think that's more of a enjoyable ending than when they just tell you exactly. Like in Dexter, he went to Alaska. You know exactly what happens now, so there's no mystery, and you're kind of let down of like, oh, he's gone.
Yeah, I mean, I would agree with you, Jordan. I mean, not maybe in whole, but definitely, I think that for somebody who's crafting a story, it kind of depends on the story that they're trying to tell, right? I mean, I think Breaking Bad's finale is something that you can point to as a finale that did it right?
Yes.
I mean, it kind of wrapped up all of the storylines, and the show really does get kind of, super obtuse at the end, and they kind of bring all of those threads that have been so scattered throughout that last season and a half, and kind of twist them all together and into in a really satisfying way. I know that not everybody liked it. Some people hated it, and that's going to be the way that it, everybody has their own opinion.
Right.
I mean, we're on a show where we're throwing our opinions, out to the public. So, but like I said, there are instances where a solid finale where you want to hit everything to kind of wrap up a storyline work. But a lot of times, especially in TV, when you're having this, this idea of these people existing in this world, this idea of the finale being the end of their life, like that's really the only way you kind of wrap it up is to have everybody in the cast die. So you kind of have to leave those threads out there, and I think that The Sopranos was extremely. It was it was super divisive. Lots of people liked it, lots of people hated it,
Right.
but it is something that has been talked about. I mean, the show ended 7 or 8 years ago, and it's still talked about to this day.
It's still in the public eye, in the public consciousness.
But regardless, to bring up The Sopranos in relation to the True Blood finale is probably blasphemy because the True Blood finale was super. It almost seemed like kind of like a fuck you to the fans. Like it was like, oh, you want these people to end up together? Oh, guess what? She kills them at the end. Fuck you. So, right. And I don't know. It's based off of a book by Stephanie Meyer. I have no idea if that's how the book resolves itself. I don't even know if the book's done now. But I can tell you this: I'm happy that I don't ever have to watch that show ever again.
What about you, Jordan?
Well, I heard online or read online, I guess, that there's a possible reboot to The Greatest American Hero, 70s
really?
TV show. Yeah. So that's exciting. I guess it's the guys that did the 21 Jump Street reboot.
Interesting.
So, I think that has potential. I love that show.
Again, I've never seen it before. I mean, I hear people talk about it all the time, but I've never seen it myself.
I think it was one season, maybe two.
Yeah, I know the theme song, but beyond that, I don't know much about it.
I think it was two because the main character, from season 1 to the end of the series, somehow his name changed, and they never addressed why. They started calling him something different. But the basic premise is a high school inner city teacher is driving around somewhere in the middle of nowhere at night. Aliens come down, and they give him this suit of tights that has superpowers, and they give him an instruction manual on how to use it. Then he loses the instruction manual, but he keeps the suit. So he's trying to figure out, like, how to do all these, superhero things, and he has a partner on the FBI that helps him, like, solve crimes and stuff, and they just try to figure it out, and it's just...
So basically, the Green Lantern, except for way better than the shitty movie and way worse than the comic book, right?
Yeah.
Somewhere right there in the middle.
Yeah, that's pretty good.
Okay.
It's just great, because, like, you see, like, the old Superman serials where, like, he's flying on the strings and, like, it looks like he's flying. Well, in this show, he doesn't know how to fly, so he's on the strings and he's just kind of, like, hanging there, like, falling. But he's going, like, forward through sky, so he looks terrible.
So is it like done in a really handball, corny way, kind of like the 1960s Batman series?
Not quite that heavy-handed, but yeah, it's definitely the 70s. I'm sure someone was, very high on cocaine. But yeah, it's Starsky and Hutch with superpowers.
Well, right on. Do we know who's funding the reboot, or is it going to be like a Netflix thing, or?
I don't know if it's a serial or a movie. I'm kind of thinking movie, since it's the 21 Jump Street guys.
Yeah,
that's probably what you're looking at.
The 21 Jump Street guys are, if they're involved, that kind of, makes me even more excited. It's Phil Lord and Christopher Miller, and they worked on Cloudy with a Chance of Meatballs, which is a really good movie. 21 Jump Street, 22 Jump Street, and the Lego Movie, which I think we all loved from the beginning of this year too.
So that's safe hands.
Yeah, and speaking of that, like with the Greatest American Hero, who do you think plays the title role? Like every time I've ever seen like the vintage movie art or anything or television show art, it always reminds me of the cat that was Napoleon Dynamite, man. Do you pull that cat in and let him play in The Greatest American Hero?
I don't know that I would go to him, but definitely that look. We need a ginger with a fro. Is definitely to sell the part to keep it in line with that. Now, with a reboot, it could be
They could just go get
any white guy.
They could just go get like Domhnall Gleeson, what the Weasley twins, right? He's redhead. I don't know why I said.
Yeah, you could do that. Yeah.
He's kind of gangly and redheaded.
Sure.
So
Zac Efron.
He's too buff now.
Is
Have
he?
you seen him without a shirt off? Jesus Christ!
Not
man.
lately. No, he stopped coming by.
Yeah, I know.
He's not a redhead, right?
No, that's true. That's true.
Well, you put a wig on somebody, right?
Who are some famous redheads? Alan Turducken from Firefly. And
Turducken.
What's his name?
I don't think that's how you pronounce
Tudyk.
his last name.
Tudyk
Same
is
thing.
his last name.
Same thing.
Like a leaf on the wind. I would watch
Yeah.
it if he said that. Like if that's all he said, like if that's what he said to Fly or something, like a leaf on the wind, I'd be
Right,
like,
he says that and
Oh.
then immediately just falls into the sky. I think somebody like that, because it's got to be funny, like funny comedic timing, funny looks, but with a decent acting job. I don't know.
Yeah, so for me, I caught a couple of news items that I thought would be major geek news. Um, I don't think either one of these has been confirmed yet, but just the sheer fact that it's being talked about is really fucking exciting. First of all, I don't know about you guys, but I absolutely love The Tick.
Yep.
I loved the Fox Kids cartoon. I loved the live-action 2001 TV series, Patrick Warburton in it as the Tick.
Yep.
And looks like Patrick Warburton is back on board, and Amazon is actually looking at funding a reboot of the Tick live-action television series with Patrick Warburton back as the Tick, and I'm super excited about the possibilities of that. I think it'll be fucking brilliant, just because Patrick Warburton was brilliant in the original run from 2001.
just to remain the poo-pooer here, I never really watched The Tick, and the stuff that I did watch, I think when it gained popularity, I just maybe was a little too young or out of the loop as to what made it funny, and I just thought it was really weird when I saw it. Even the animated series, I just did not enjoy.
Well, it's super tongue in cheek, and it's very much to me it's very much making fun of comic book heroes and villains and things of that nature.
Like I said, if I revisited it now, my feelings might be changed. I can't.
Yeah.
I'm looking at it through a lens of, like I said, seeing maybe 1.5 episodes in total of, both the live action and, animated series. I just always thought it was really, not mainstream, which
Right.
doesn't
It's
doesn't
not.
make it a bad thing at all. But it just, I can't speak super knowledgeably about it except for to say it doesn't really get my engines revving just because I don't have the reference for the original source material. So
All I have to say is fucking spoon.
Yes. I would say adult Justin would definitely appreciate both the animated and the live action.
I think so.
Do-rag Justin would not.
The other big piece of news about a possible returning show, which I think all three of us would be super stoked about, is I'm hearing heavy rumors that Netflix is looking at funding a second season of Firefly. From my understanding, it sounds to me like everybody is on board with the idea, and to me, fuck it. Let's do it. Let's do it. Let's bring back the cast. Let's get it done.
yeah,
I would be excited but surprised to see it.
Why?
Yeah, I think that it would definitely surprise me if it came to fruition. There's a lot of things that the movie. I don't know if they would do something in between the series and the movie, or go back and do a prequel. I think Nathan Fillion would probably be able to pull it off, but a lot of the other cast, especially the Baldwin guy, he's went like absolutely nuts since the show has ended.
Yeah.
So I mean, I don't know. Like I said, there's definitely if it did come to fruition, I would be super stoked to check it out. And I would caveat that with saying that Joss Whedon would need to be involved in some way.
Yeah, my understanding
Yeah.
is that he would be. So
But yeah, like I said, it doesn't. I mean, this is kind of there's been rumors bubbling for forever. It seems like every couple years, this idea of a movie or another relaunch of this property is going to come to fruition, and then it never does. So,
right.
I mean, with Netflix throwing the money the way that it does. Around recently, I know they just acquired The Blacklist, which I've never seen. It looks like a really crappy procedural, but it was like $2 million an episode or something like that to try to get it on their show. So,
Yeah.
like I said, who knows? With distribution models changing and the money that Netflix is able to kind of throw behind a property like that, maybe we could finally get the thing that we've always kind of yearned for since Fox, were a bunch of assholes and decided to cancel it after like 4 episodes. Fuck
Yeah.
Fox.
But does the way that Fox did it make Firefly better by making it limited? And if you're a fan looking for the show, not every episode was aired. The show was treated very badly. So does that mean that you like it more? Do you feel sorry for the show, or if we see new episodes, is it going to be exactly the same and everyone's going to love them?
See, I think it just depends on what they do with it. Like, if Joss Whedon is in fact back on board, then I don't see why the hell it wouldn't go over well. Um,
Well,
I don't see. I don't. I mean, it's his property, right? I mean, why would it not go over well?
Well, number one, Joss Whedon. Like I said, I'm a Joss Whedon super fan. Like I mean, if Joss Whedon walked in the room right now, like I might die of a heart attack. But he's the man. But he also was supposedly super involved with Marvel Agents of Shield, and I've already said that name twice today as a pejorative because it was shitty. So,
To be fair, you didn't fucking finish watching the first
well,
season.
yeah, but I mean, like I said, the first 3 episodes. Apparently, he kind of was involved in the beginning of the series, and then kind of left that to his brother and a set of writers to kind of oversee the TV universe, as it were. So, not to say that destroys my confidence in Josh, and Joss Whedon, but I don't know. Like I said, it's definitely something that does kind of say, I don't really know if they can recapture the glory of that. And there have been other instances where shows have been canceled and brought back. I know Futurama specifically was one that happened within the last 4 or 5 years. I never really watched the original episode, but the buzz was that when it came back on the air, it couldn't recapture the magic.
Didn't that happen with Family Guy?
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah,
it's
a couple
definitely
times.
another one where it came back, and every time, and each new iteration kind of was less than the one that came before. So
Right.
I would not to say I'm not one of those guys that says, oh, don't remake stuff, because I don't think that destroys the original in any way. It doesn't make me say, oh well, fuck, they redid RoboCop, therefore all the original Verhoeven movies are dog shit. Like, I don't know.
Well, the
Right.
Verhoeven only did the first one, so
Well, right.
and the first one is the best of the bunch.
Yeah,
So
I've never watched the. Like I said, those are on my pile of shame. I got a massive mountain of shame that I need
yes,
to kind of dig
yes,
through at some point.
yes. One of which is a Blu-ray of mine that you've had for almost a year.
It's been more than a year.
Has it?
It
It been
has
that
to have
long?
been.
Yeah.
Has to have been.
Well, I saw that they put it on Netflix the other day. It was the special edition, and I had
Yeah.
that. I had it's like the cover is a guy with a red cape, right?
Fuck you.
And a shotgun. And a big yellow cab. Yeah, I put it on my Netflix list too. We'll definitely have to sit down and watch that.
Okay, so I think with that said, does anybody else got anything else before we move into the meat of our discussion this evening?
No, sir.
All right.
Nope.
All right. Well, like I said, tonight we're going to be discussing video games from the previous generation of systems. I think this actually ought to be a pretty interesting discussion. I think many of us, or at least the three of us, are probably going to have some games in common that we feel justly deserve a mention tonight. Um, I think we're probably going to have some differing opinions just because of the fact that, well, I don't like I don't like first person shooters and you guys do, so I think we ought to come up with some pretty well rounded mentions tonight.
I think so. I would like to start with what happened to me today in Grand Theft Auto Online.
Oh, sure, go ahead.
Probably one of the coolest experiences I've had in a
And
while.
you're playing that on 360, right?
And this is on 360.
Okay.
So I know, Justin, I think you did the story mode, but neither one of you have seen the online world that they've created with this game. But here's how awesome it is. So I'm sitting in my truck outside of an apartment waiting for somebody inside that has a bounty on their head. So if I kill that player, I get a need. While I'm waiting, some other player is rolling up the street in a tank, because you can buy a tank and just go around shooting things. So he blows me up. So my truck blows up, and I got to go file an insurance claim to get it back after I respawn. So what I do is I pull up the cell phone in game, and I call up one of the NPCs who you can use to hire a mugger, who is a computer character that will go after another player and knock them down, take money out of their account, pull them out of a car if they're in the car. And I knew this cat was in the tank. So I called the mugger. And so basically the mugger just kind of stalks them around town, and if that player stops long enough, they pounce. So the guy in the tank, when you're in the tank, you have to stop every so often and shoot the cops because they're just all over the place. So the mugger pulls him out of the tank, takes $2,000 out of his wallet, gets in the tank, and starts driving around. So we've got an NPC driving around town in a tank. Well, the coding for the NPC, for some reason, he was driving the tank like a car, so he was going like 90 miles an hour around corners, like over street lamps, like running over just other NPC cars. He never shot the tank, but he was just going nuts. So when you do that, you have to chase the mugger down and kill them to get the money that they've stolen.
Right.
So everyone's chasing him because he shows up on the radar as the mugger, because whoever gets him gets the money. So we're chasing an NPC who's in a tank, trying to kill him, but he's in a tank. You can't do it. So eventually the tank engine dies. He's run over so many cars and explosions that he stops, and he gets out and he just starts running down the street, and I take him out. But that was amazing, just to see that. That other player, he must have been so pissed that we stole his tank.
Yeah, I know that you've been, pretty effusive about your love of GTA 5, especially the online, Jordan. But
Yeah.
every time you talk to me, you talk about like filing insurance claims and
Right?
driving, obeying traffic laws, and
Uh-huh.
I'm like, this sounds like the most boring fucking game on the planet. Like,
It's not, though.
is there a mode where you wait for like 2 hours for AT&T customer service or something like that? So,
Sometimes when you call the insurance company, yes, you do get a busy signal.
oh my god, are you fucking serious?
No.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, no, sometimes it is busy, yeah.
Oh, Jesus.
They don't get to the phone. Or, there's a service called Pegasus that manages all of your special vehicles, like your helicopters and your tanks and stuff. And the NPC voice that you talk to is just like a call center agent. They're like, 1 moment, please.
Holy
It's just
shit.
so lifelike. It's, and I follow the laws because I choose to. I'm a good person. I'm not out there just killing people willy-nilly.
You just had like
Unless I get money for
5-minute
it.
conversation about hiring a mugger, killing the guy that the mugger attacked, and then killing the mugger.
Well, that guy stepped to me first. He blew up my truck. You don't scratch the truck.
But you began the story saying that you had already accepted a hit for somebody and was waiting outside of the house for the person to kill them.
Only bad guys have bounties on their head. If he was a law-abiding citizen like me, he wouldn't be wanted dead. It's a public service I do to the online community.
Okay. Okay, I'll take your word for it, Jordan.
So that was Mike.
What's that now? I'm sorry. Did I lose you?
Justin?
I'm here.
Okay.
Did I lose you guys?
Mike?
Can you hear me?
I can hear you. Can you hear
I
me?
can hear you, Mike.
Okay. I thought
Cool.
you guys weren't
Man,
talking to me there for a
This
second.
Google shit it's just janky, man.
Yeah.
No, hold
Uh,
up, hold up, hold up, hold up. They are technically sponsoring the show now. Come on,
I
come
know,
on.
but come on now.
Are you on a laptop, Justin?
I am on a laptop.
Yeah, and
It could
I
be that
am
we've got
also.
3 laptops.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, yeah, I won't speak for the the actual quality of my connection through AT&T. Fuck AT&T.
Right.
Okay, so let's not derail the show here. Okay.
I just like to say fuck everything. Like fuck
Yep.
AT&T. Fuck my laptop. We suck. The coaches suck.
Yep.
The players suck. So,
Okay, so yeah, moving on. Who wants to open up with the conversation here?
well, I guess probably the best way to kind of get into the meat of the conversation here is to kind of give our general introduction into the generation. I mean, what systems is it that we bought? When did we get them? Did we get them at launch? Did we get them later on in the product's life cycle? What motivated us to get those systems? And I guess I can go ahead and go first. I ended up owning all three of the big tent poles, the both 360 and PlayStation 3, and then the Wii as well. Got the 360 about 6 months after it came out. Um, at the time, I wasn't super into gaming as much as I am now. Obviously, I'd kind of fallen out. I played from time to time, but it was mainly sports games. But the trailer for Gears of War with the Mad World theme playing over it really kind of made me think, oh, I gotta try this shit. So went out to the store, bought it. The PlayStation 3 I got about a year after its launch, and that was mainly because of the uh, exclusive content that was there. And then the Wii, I didn't get until 2 or 3 years after it came out because I had already spent so much damn money on the other systems that I had to wait. But I definitely got to play the Wii from the time that it was released. My brother got the Wii that first holiday season during the launch. He didn't get it at launch, but he got it, you know, within the next couple months. So, how about you, Mike?
Yeah, so I got my Xbox 360 first. Um, and I actually got it. I didn't get it at launch. I got it shortly after Oblivion came out, Elder Scrolls 4 Oblivion. I got it right as that game was coming out because I loved Elder Scrolls 3 Morrowind on the original Xbox. So I went out and got my 360 then. But it quickly fell out of favor for me for the PS3 because PS3 ended up launching not too long afterwards, and I actually asked for it for the Christmas that it actually came out on, so I got it for Christmas that year. And then the Wii I bought right in the middle of the big Wii craze when everybody was going chasing after the Wii, and it seemed like you couldn't find it anywhere. And I just so happened to luck in to be able to get one on Memorial Day weekend of all weekends, as crazy as it is here in Indianapolis during race weekend. I happened to find one over at the local Toys R Us and picked it up, and we gamed the shit out of that weekend with all the visitors that I had in for family coming into town for the race and stuff. So, how
Now,
about
what
you,
did you
Jordan?
say when you got the Wii?
I'm sorry.
What did you say when you finally bought the Wii?
What do you mean?
Are you going to say the code word?
What code word?
When you buy the Wii, you're supposed to take it home and hold it up and go, Wii!
Oh, shit. I know nothing about that, man.
Ah, he didn't get the memo, Justin. I know Justin did it.
I certainly did not do that.
From the box, this is a piece of shit.
That's pretty much what happened. That is pretty much what happened. Like I said, I got it.
What the fuck is this?
Yeah, exactly. No, there really was, and obviously we'll probably talk about it more in depth later. But the Wii was just a unique system, and the experience of playing it for the first few times really was a whole new experience, something that I had never really experienced in the past. But what about you, Jordan?
We got the Wii pretty much when it came out. We played Mario Kart and the Wii Sports and the Wii Party and the games like that where it's just all the mini games, the generic stuff that uses your Mii avatar. That's pretty much all we've played it. We play it a lot. My family loves it, but it's definitely a kid system. 360 I got about a year after it came out. I bought the Elite version that had the 250 gig hard drive, and it was in the black finish instead of the white. So I was a little late getting that, but that's the one that I bought when it came out. And no PS3.
Okay.
Right.
Yeah,
No PS3. So
pretty much.
you missed out on some of the greatest games of the last generation, Jordan, which
Yes.
like I said, I'm sure we'll be talking about. So
Yeah.
Okay,
But by the
so
time I found them, I figured, like, what's too late to buy? I'm not going to buy a whole new system for one game.
it's never too late.
Yeah,
It is never too late.
I don't know.
Yeah, anyway. uh, Justin, you want to go ahead and start us out with a conversation on a game?
sure. Well, I guess like I said, one of the things that really drew me into the actually jumping back into games was Gears of War. Um, the first trailer. Well, I don't know if you guys recall that trailer, but the trailer was just really well done. It was Marcus Phoenix kind of going to trying to have this battle with a corpser, and like I said, over it was playing Mad World, and that teaser trailer, whatever you want to call it, really, when I saw it, it just really struck a tone with me. I was like, I have to go check this out. And the game itself turned out to be pretty good. It's not my favorite game of all time, but the mechanics were super strong. And the first time I put it in, seeing what the new generation was capable of, even though at the time I was looking at it on a standard definition television, seeing the amount of the resolution and the amount of textures and stuff like that they could put into the world, which now sounds kind of silly because it was 6-7 years ago now,
Yeah.
but it really blew me away. I mean, graphically speaking, Gears of War always delivers. Something that is an enjoyable watch, if not for the playing aspect. So
360? Did you play that on 360?
yeah, I mean it's a 360 exclusive. It was published by
Okay.
Microsoft,
Yeah.
developed by what is their name? It just left my head. Cliff Basinski. Whatever. We'll come back to it.
Yeah.
So
See, I played two, and I didn't care that much for it. Um,
yeah, I mean the second and third ones were, in my opinion, not as good as the first.
yeah.
But the first one is it's just a cheesy action movie. Like
Yeah.
there's literally a line that says, "That thing looks like a shit ton of stuff," and the guy says, "No, it's 10 shit tons." Right?
Right.
Like it's really dumb.
Yeah.
So, but the trailers are always just
Yeah.
fantastic. They
Yeah.
always kind of juxtapose this really weighty scenario that's playing out with some kind of melodramatic music, or I believe the third one had some kind of like poem that it was reading over
Yeah.
Marcus Phoenix, like shooting down all of the locusts.
Right.
So like I said, I mean, I think that in 20 years, it won't be remembered for the lore that it necessarily put forth, but definitely for delivering a solid gameplay experience and it was, it was one of the first games that really delivered on what, quote unquote next gen at the time was. So
Yeah. It was an odd choice that it was a third-person shooter too, where you're kind of standing behind the guy, looking over his shoulder, doing the action. A lot of games don't do that.
yeah, I mean, I think, Cliff
It's kind
Blazinski,
of a
which was,
third-person point of view, right? Kind of like
Yeah.
what they
yeah,
did with Resident Evil 5.
yeah, I mean, that's definitely Cliff Blazinski, the lead designer on the game, was. Uh, he said, as he's talked about in numerous interviews and stuff that have come out after the launch of the game, even before, he talked about how Resident Evil 4 was a giant influence on him when kind of developing the mechanics of the game. So, yeah, I mean, it controls a lot like Resident Evil, which Resident Evil 4 is one of the best games ever made. So I'm definitely down with playing more of that. And like I said, it was the cover mechanic, the roadie run, um, and like I said, the story is really stupid, but it serves its purpose. It gets you from point A to point B and lets you shoot plenty of things in between.
Yeah.
So
And there's a chainsaw in the gun.
yes.
Not bad.
Jordan, what about you?
I'm gonna go with. I actually brought my cases out. Do a little product placement here. I've got Transformers: The War on Cybertron, the first of the Cybertron series. So this is not based on the movies, but the actual first generation characters on Cybertron. I thought this was a really good game. I think it's a third person shooter as well. So it's Gears of War plus you can turn into robot cars and stuff. But I really liked that. I thought the story and the mechanics of the co-op options for the game were really good. This one more so than the sequel. So like there's always three characters on every mission, and so me and you two could be playing online, and we could do the whole story start to finish, always together and playing as different characters. So that kind of mechanic was really nice.
I need to give it a second chance because I'd never finished playing it. I was so disappointed with the background visuals and stuff when I bought the damn thing
Yeah.
that I just gave up on it because it was just bad. The graphically, the design of Cybertron was awful. Everything looked the same. It was, yeah.
I'll give you
I
that, but I
didn't
think
like
they
it.
definitely put the work into the actual gameplay mechanics. It's so smooth going from soldier to robot back to soldier. Um, Especially online, the action is very well paced. That
Yeah,
it's a
yeah. I mean, I
fast
definitely
shooter.
think when you watch the Bay Transformers and you see them jump off of a building, transform into a jet, fly over to the other building, transform into the robot form,
Yeah.
like that game delivers on that,
Yes.
and the actual feeling of doing that is not matched in any other game because it's kind of unique to what a transformer is. So, like I said, Epic. First of all, Epic is the developer of Gears of War. High
Okay.
Moon did both of the Transformers that were really good,
Yep.
and I really enjoyed it. The online is not usually my bag,
Right.
but the actual story was really cool.
Yep.
I would agree with Mike that it was the actual environments become kind of you know monotonous. But I mean, it is Cybertron, so I mean, I guess
True.
you could try to change it up, but it's a big robot world, right?
Right.
So
Yeah, I don't know. Like I say, it got, I guess, boring to me is what I'm trying to say. When every background looked the same and stuff, I'm like, really, really. I mean, you spent all this money. You were trying to go all the way to do a Transformers game right, and you couldn't do any better with the
well, I
background
mean,
environs.
but I think your reverence for the property, and most people's, if they are interested in Transformers, I mean, just the fact that you have a fight with Soundwave, or
Yeah.
you see Omega Prime, or you know
You mean Omega
Grimlock.
Supreme?
Yeah, no, that's what I meant.
Yeah.
or in the second one, Grimlock is the Dinobots in the second one are kind of a big part of the story.
Yeah.
So, like I said, it's not like Shakespearean. It's not the best storyline of all time, but
Right.
the integration of the nostalgia was enough for me to think that it was a really cool game. Let alone
Sure.
the actual mechanics of the game, I think are really enjoyable.
Yeah.
So
And doing the story mode with a friend. There were a couple people that I would play online. So there's a mission where you're, Optimus Prime and Bumblebee and Ironhide or somebody. So that whoever's playing Optimus, like you get to be the leader and you get to say like Bumblebee, watch out. And, like that's a lot of the fun, just being in the story. So if you're playing with yourself, yeah, you wouldn't have that experience. So it would be very, very monotonous. I don't even think you could
I'm
change
gonna let that go,
between
Jordan.
the two.
yeah, as monotonous as playing with yourself can become,
It's horrible.
uh,
It's always
I
better to play with a friend.
I partake
Have you
in
ever given
that
yourself
quite
a
often.
stranger?
Yeah.
No good.
Okay.
All right.
So
What do you got, Mike?
yeah, what about you, Mike?
So this, for those that know me, this is really going to come as no shock to them. I am a huge Final Fantasy nut. I've followed
What?
Final Fantasy for many, many years. Um, and I pretty much own every game that's ever come out in the series and in every release that they've done of it. So my whole reason for even wanting a PS3 was because of the Final Fantasy series. And Final Fantasy 13, while much maligned by the Final Fantasy fans, I actually enjoyed the fuck out of it. Um,
Yeah, you just had to
the,
wait like 5 years after the system came out till it finally was available, right?
Well, no. I mean, obviously, I bought other games before that, but the primary reason for buying the PlayStation in general was because at the time, for all I knew, Final Fantasy was still um, a Sony product, if you will. At the time, it had not been announced that it was going to be cross-platform with the 360 and stuff. So my whole wanting for a PlayStation was over wanting Final Fantasy 13. And like I said, I mean it's much maligned by the Final Fantasy fan community, mainly because of how linear the story actually is. It's very true. It is extremely linear, but it's linear because it's trying to tell a really in-depth story, and the only way they could do that was to make it as linear as it actually is. Um, I enjoyed the shit out of the story. I enjoy the characters. Um, I mean, it's not the world's greatest Final Fantasy, uh, but for the first effort for the next generation, I thought it was terrific. I enjoyed the hell out of it.
Well, I've heard that the battle system is something. I mean, obviously, each iteration within the Final Fantasy franchise changes stuff up, but I've talked to some people that really enjoy that battle system from
Yeah,
13
it's a lot of
specifically.
fun. Once you get the hang of using the battle system from Final Fantasy 13, uh, it's hard not to like it because it keeps you engaged. All the boss battles require you to have to change up on the fly. So yeah, I mean, like I said, it's engaging. And I know Justin, you don't like the whole turn-based battle system that the Final Fantasy series brings, but when you're using the battle system from Final Fantasy 13, you feel like you're actually, the buttons you're pressing matter. You know what I mean? Like it keeps you engaged. So from that standpoint, I think you would enjoy it.
Yeah, then maybe at some point maybe I'll check it out. Probably not though. So
Yeah.
Well, at least you're honest.
yeah. Well, I mean,
Justin?
I guess that kind of leads to me another item off of my list here, and as per usual, I have 100 million things on my list to talk about. Um, like I said, the last generation was really. I talk about the Nintendo 64 being my heyday, but really I was really big into the Nintendo 64, and I owned a PlayStation 2. I never owned an Xbox, but like I said, throughout my high school career, I really was not as into games as I am now, and these systems really got their hooks into me, and this is the biggest library of stuff that I've ever got to play. And so because of that, there's a lot of games that I would put on my list that I would consider, some of my favorite games of all time. But specifically, I want to point out the Orange Box, which is kind of a cheat in and of itself because it's not necessarily a game; it's a collection of games. It included Half-Life 2, Half-Life 2, Episode 2, and obviously the gaming public has been clamoring for either Half-Life 3 or Episode 3 to come out because it ends on a cliffhanger. It's one of the biggest gut punches of all time, the way that game ends. But also included in that package was one of the most interesting new IPs that has come out. It's Portal, and along with that, I would include Portal 2. The actual mechanics of the game were wholly unique. The idea of using portals to manipulate the environment, using physics to solve puzzles. And it's definitely one of those puzzle games that accomplishes the feeling of making you feel like you are the smartest person ever. Like you figured it out and nobody else could have figured it out, even though obviously the game was designed for the puzzle to be solved in the way that you solved it. One of the greatest moments of all time is the ending of Portal. I don't know if you guys have ever played either of them, but there's a big twist that happens at the end of Portal, and it's kind of a take on what video games are and how you interact with the medium. And like I said, those two specifically. I mean, Portal itself is probably deserves a spot on the list more than Portal 2. Just because of its importance within the actual spectrum of what gaming was, especially within the context of last generation. But Portal 2 took those mechanics, added to them, and kind of refined and stripped away anything that was kind of clunky or kludgy about the first Portal. So Portal 2, in my opinion, is a better game, but Portal 1 is probably more important and deserves a spot on a list. Not that we're creating a list here, but if one were to hypothetically create a list, as I do every time that I talk about, my favorite things, it would deserve a spot, close to the top. So,
yeah, I think it's pretty fair to say.
So what's the story on the delay on a sequel to Half-Life? Or Half-Life 2?
Who knows? I mean, Valve is busy managing Steam. Steam is a giant cash cow for Valve, but they are mum on the idea of they don't talk about it. Obviously, everybody's been clamoring for it. It's been, 7-8 years now since the release of Orange Box, and no teaser trailers, nothing. Like I said, complete radio silence by the developers as to what's going on with that property. There's absolutely no way in hell that it's not being developed or being worked on at this point. But
it seems like it's almost achieving Duke Nukem status at this point.
It absolutely will. I mean, obviously Duke Nukem was a little bit different of a story because they kind of came out and announced it and showed footage, and obviously it changed hands with the studios and changed, a whole bunch of stuff changed from beginning to end. But, I think they're doing a disservice to the reception of the game because at this point the anticipation has become so high that they probably will never be able to deliver on what gamers are expecting out of that package whenever it does release. So every year at E3, there's conjecture, there's fans out there that take any kind of tidbit of information and extrapolate that out into some insane theories as to what they're trying to do. And Valve is definitely smart enough that they could integrate some kind of, ARG or internet rabbit hole that you could fall down to announce a game like that, but they have not to this point. So,
Half-Life 3 is real, and we're living it right now.
Yeah, that's the true ending of our lives and of video games.
Exactly.
All right, Jordan, what's next on the list for you, man?
Star, you know what's coming. Red Dead Redemption.
Yeah, that's
Uh,
actually on
as,
my list too.
right, as far as game mechanics, story, graphics, like that shows what my 360 can do. There are places in that game where it looks real. There's things you do that feel real. So it's
Yeah,
just
my love for that game actually comes from the fact that me and you and Dan sat in sat in your basement and gamed on that all night, the one night, and it was fucking amazing.
yep,
The I had so much fun doing that with you guys. And yeah, that I will never forget that. I will never
yep,
forget that first night and stuff. And it's endeared itself to me since then.
yeah.
Um,
The multiplayer flawless.
yeah, it really
Mm.
is. It's just absolutely amazing. I wish I was better at playing those kinds of games. I wish I wasn't so sluggish on the controls. But I adore Red Dead Redemption. In fact, not only do I have it on 360 thanks to you, but I also went out and bought it on PS3, and it's just as good on PS3.
Yep,
It is so much fun.
yep.
Well,
Very enjoyable.
I'll be the first person to talk negatively about Rockstar.
Shut up.
Um, and generally speaking, I'm not a big fan of the GTA franchise. Obviously, I
Well, it's a good
recognize.
fucking thing we're not talking about
Well,
GTA.
right. Obviously, I recognize their ability to craft giant open world games in the context of what GTA is, but I've always felt that they've fallen short when it comes to crafting a narrative or some kind of cohesive experience overall, and that absolutely was delivered in Red Dead Redemption. The storyline itself is fantastic, and the ending of that game may be one of the best endings of all time in gaming, maybe in in any medium. And the interactive nature of what happens throughout the last act of that game and the redemption arc of this character that you've come to know and love. I mean, there's lots of problematic things, as always in Rockstar games. A lot of, misogynist, sexist shit that kind of bears itself out with this idea of being a parody of what modern culture is in GTA and what the Wild West was in Red Dead Redemption. But I've said it before on this podcast, the Mexico section is a little bit too long.
Yep.
But other than that, the game is truly fantastic. And if we were ranking these, it would be one or two on my list as to the best and most important games of this generation.
Yep, definitely.
Yeah, good call, Jordan. Like I said, that was on my list also.
What else you got, Mike?
Well, since you took Red Dead, I'm gonna take something that's a little non-conventional, and it might be cheating a little bit. Um, so I had a friend of mine that is a huge Star Wars nut as well as myself, and they introduced me to the Lego Star Wars franchise, and they actually introduced me to Lego Star Wars 2, the original saga, and I fell so much in love with just the simple, fun game mechanics of that I ended up going out looking for it, and I ended up finding Lego Star Wars: The Complete Saga for PS3, and I that never left my system for 2 days, and I finished it in record time with 100% completion. Still, the Lego series of games, be it the Star Wars, Lord of the Rings, Batman, whatever. I love all of those Lego games. They're all very simple. They're just kind of mindless, good fun, simple puzzle solving, simple platforming. Um, but they're just fun. I don't know how else to describe them. They're just fun.
Yeah,
And that
and
Lego Star Wars Complete Saga was probably the best of the bunch.
yeah,
The force powers, the lightsabers, just everything about it was outstanding.
yeah, and it's just amazing what they can do with the licensing.
Yeah, for sure.
That's just that's awesome that companies can work together and actually make something awesome.
Have you actually played the complete saga before, Jordan?
Yeah, I played a little of it when it came out. I rented it or something. I didn't buy it, but yeah, It's they're clever, they're entertaining, they're easy. You know, it's a kids game, but it's also compelling enough that like I enjoyed it.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, like I I love my sports games and I love a good in-depth RPG. But sometimes, I just want to sit down and have some mindless good fun. And that's one of those games you can just throw in, and you're not gonna have to expend a lot of energy or thinking or anything like that to play through it, man. It's a button masher.
Yep.
It's a lot of fun.
Yep.
Justin, have you played any of those games before?
Yeah, I mean, definitely have played the Star Wars ones in the past. Not, they never really grabbed me, specifically because the like weird silent way that the games were handled. I mean, there was no voiceover or anything like
Yeah.
that, and that was kind of corrected in Lego Batman 2, which I thought was fantastic. And I think they did it beforehand. They might have instituted it on one of the
It,
previous iterations
yeah,
of the
it actually started with Lego Lord of the Rings, I think,
Lord of the
and then
Rings.
yeah.
But Lego Batman 2 was the one that I played that first had that integration with the actual voice acting and stuff within the storyline. Lego Marvel was great as well, and like you said, they're not there's not a whole lot of meat on the bone as far as some kind of deep storytelling experience, but there's plenty of you know fun to be had with the game. It's you run through, you like you said, you spam the X button or whatever system you're playing on over and over and over again. But you have a lot of fun doing it, and they're very clever in the way that they integrate story tidbits from the franchises that you love, and really that's what it is doing. It's kind of playing upon your love for whatever property it is that it's playing within. So
Yeah.
Traveler's Tales has done a terrific job with the franchise, just from how far it's come from its beginnings to where it's at now. I mean, Lego Batman 3, which is getting ready to come out for next gen systems, looks amazing. I'm so looking forward to it.
Yeah.
yeah, definitely the original Adam West Batman uh, being included in the game or whatever has me excited for it. So it's definitely something I'll probably check out. It's not something I'll go out and buy the day that it hits the store shelves,
Oh, I
but
will. I will.
yeah, at
Let's go
some
camp
point.
out for the Lego game. Out of the way, kid. We got an adult here.
Justin?
Well, like I said, I have way too many games on this list to get to. But I want to touch on one thing specifically, one game that I think was a brand new experience, something that I had the absolute most fun with within this last generation of systems, and that is Rock Band. Um, I bought Rock Band actually on my honeymoon. It was I shouldn't really, it wasn't so much a honeymoon as a go away for a couple days to a hotel close to us, but kind of get away for a little bit. But we took some of our wedding money, me and my wife, and we bought Rock Band. We went into a store. It was all sold out. There was one sitting on the ground. I said I want it. I don't know if we'll be able to ever find it again, and she said let's buy it. So that's definitely a pivotal touchstone moment that I have. But the actual first time that you put it in, obviously Guitar Hero had come before, and I remember the first time picking Guitar Hero up and playing through a song, and while you're touching, using your fingers to press five colored buttons, it somehow makes you feel like you are playing guitar, like you're shredding, whatever track it is that you're playing. And Rock Band is just a further extension of that. This idea of integrating a karaoke experience that you have with all of your friends while being able to kind of master all of the technical skills and feel like you're a drummer or, a bassist or a guitar player, along with some really great licensed music that was included, within the game and the second and third that came out. there really was nothing that I played that I enjoyed more than the times that I got together with my friends, my family, beyond the Wii, and experienced something that I don't know if it'll ever happen again. I don't know if there'll ever be a game that kind of brings everybody together, lets people kind of be uninhibited. Because normally, if you say, "Hey, let's do karaoke on Christmas night," people are like, "No," because it's like a stage performance. You're standing up singing in front of other people, but the interactive nature of the game, and everybody being involved and kind of breaks down those inhibitions. And I absolutely love Rock Band. I really talking about it now makes me want to have you guys over and we'll have a Rock Band party at some point because it's just
I
so
totally
fun.
should. I've never played that. I've got Guitar Hero, but yeah, I've always thought Rock Band was cool just because it has those different parts of the band that you're filling, so anyone can be involved.
Yeah, and there's a massive library of music out there now. I mean, it really touches on a lot of stuff. They had a lot of pop music, but they also got a lot of music that I'm sure Mike would appreciate too. I know Mike is way more picky when it comes to music than I am. I'm totally willing to sing, the newest Kesha song if it
Yeah.
if it hits Rock Band. So
Never.
Oh man. Well, I'm going to go in a slightly different route then. I'm going to go 360 the Battlefield, Battlefield 3. Bad Company came out before that, and Battlefield 4 is out now. For a first-person shooter, the technology in the Battlefield series is phenomenal. In this new one, like the buildings come down, and even in Bad Company, you could put a C4 pack on a wall and blow the wall off of a building and enter that way instead of going through the same door that everyone else uses. Um, the maps are massive. There's vehicles. There's all these different weapons, and um, that's a really intense shooter. That I know Call of Duty is probably the more popular one, but Battlefield, just the stuff they put in that game is amazing.
Yeah, I was gonna ask you. I mean, do you prefer Battlefield to the Call of Duty series?
Uh, I grew up on Battlefield 2 on PC, and I was okay with that. I think it's so complex that on the console I struggle with it. There's a couple things that I can do really well. Um, handling the vehicles, I can handle that. But as far as combat, like it's so fast and it's so open. The maps are way bigger than they are in Call of Duty. That I'm better at Call of Duty because it's simpler and more channeled on where the guys are going to be. Um, for my combat style, I'm better at that. But I love Battlefield the way it looks and the way it feels.
Right on. Justin, have you
The
played
the
any of the
newer ones, the
Battlefield
older
games?
ones, I was better at.
yeah, I really liked Bad Company. It would kind of have a cool little storyline. But I mean, I think the destructibility of the environments kind of sets that game apart from everything else. And like Jordan said, obviously the online is way different with massive maps and more players and vehicles being an integral part of that experience. I again don't play a lot of online multiplayer, so I couldn't really speak to that. But Bad Company, I definitely enjoyed the storyline in.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've never I've said many times before. I'm not a very good first-person shooter player at all, but I've always been amazed at how great some of those games look. Call of Duty, Battlefield. Um, I have a lot of respect for the success that those game franchises have had, and a lot of respect for the fact that the multiplayer online modes on those games continue to be top notch in video games. So yeah, I think next on my list, I got to kind of throw out some honorable mentions on as well. Um, Batman Arkham City for PS3. Um, I fell in love with this series of games with the obviously the first one with Batman Arkham Asylum, which gets an honorable mention from me, as well as Batman Arkham Origins. Um, Bat Batman Arkham City to me is a perfect game. It is one of the very few games that I would actually give 5 stars out of 5 stars. Uh, the storyline was terrific. The gameplay is visceral. Um, I love being able to fly around the city quick and get to where I'm going. Um, I love the combat system. I loved the variety of villains, the side quests, just everything about Batman Arkham City was perfection. If you are a Batman fan, this is the game you have waited all of your lives for.
Mm-hmm.
I was so happy with Batman Arkham City.
Yeah, I really liked City, but not as much as I liked Asylum.
Really?
Um, yeah. Well, I mean, I think that I'm I generally like linear games a lot more than open world games. Not that there is that big of a difference between the two. I mean, the first Arkham Asylum does have a touch of open world in it, right? Just not it's not as massive as Arkham City, and sometimes more can be a little overwhelming for me. Um, and sometimes not making that much space available to the player sometimes serves the story a little bit better. So I kind of like the integration of everybody being within this main location of Arkham Asylum in the first game. And that worked a little bit better for me. Not like I said, Arkham City was fantastic. I'm a huge Batman fan, as we've discussed, and like you said, the mechanics in the game, the actual combat. I know we've already had a discussion about it. I really enjoyed the actual combat mechanics, but the actual integration of the cape and being able to glide all over the city in
Yep.
City was fantastic.
There were some places that frustrated me that it's so you have to do a certain thing to get through. I know, like the Penguins hideout, getting across the ocean, like you had to pull that boat through in a certain way, or else you wouldn't get it. And I wish in a Batman game, like especially open world, I think there should be more options, like a couple of different ways to get across. But
Well,
small nitpicking,
the game really does an effective job of having different combat scenarios.
yeah,
Like I said, I like the actual mechanics of the combat where it's a lot of parry block. Like I said, obviously we've already had a discussion as to you know our love of the combat system, but then there's a whole nother system of stealth and taking a
Yes.
room full of guys out, and that
yeah,
I mean the dock scene in the first Nolan in Batman Begins is
yeah,
fantastic, and that the game delivers on that totally,
Yes.
where
yeah,
you pop out of a vent and grab a guy,
yes,
shoot to a
that was
gargoyle,
awesome.
grab another guy. Like it's
I
great.
I
Yeah,
love Predator mode. That is hands down one of the best inventions for a video game series ever. Predator mode, and when you're playing as Batman, being Predator mode, it is so gratifying. I love getting up on those gargoyles and doing the inverted takedown from the gargoyle,
yeah.
and then firing off to another gargoyle 2 or 3 places away, and watching from the other side as the other villains are trying to figure out what the hell's going on. I love that, man. It's so gratifying.
Yep, that's well done.
Yeah, for sure. Like I said, I definitely it definitely deserves a spot on in the conversation. I want to go through a couple quick hitters here,
Okay.
because, like I said, I have a million things on my list. I have some other ones we can get into maybe a little bit more of a conversation with, but there were three new IPs that kind of presented themselves in this generation of games that were hugely important and also bore out some of the best games of the generation. The first being the Assassin's Creed franchise, the second being the Mass Effect franchise,
Yeah,
and the third being the Uncharted franchise. All of those, I would argue, the second iteration within the series is the best. That
yeah,
seems to be the case with a lot of trilogy esque games, although
hmm
there's a lot more entries into the Assassin's Creed franchise than just 3.
Right.
But the second game itself was fantastic. The second Assassin's Creed was set in Rome. The first game with Ezio, who became the protagonist in 3 or 4 other titles that were within the Assassin's Creed lore. But it was great. The actual mechanics, like I said, I've kind of talked about it in our podcast where we were talking about the games we were looking forward to. But the actual movement, the locomotion in that game, the free running and parkour elements really set that game apart from other games, and the integration with in the historical context of the series, and then the Mass Effect series again was one of the most important franchises involved. That kind of came out during that last generation.
Yeah.
I wasn't as big of a fan of the first one, but still, it's an integral part of the trilogy. So it's an absolute must play through to kind of import your data over to the second game.
Yeah.
But the second game really delivered on the sci-fi tropes that it kind of played within, and it felt to me kind of like a early '90s sci-fi television series.
Yeah.
There was a lot of mechanics with building a group and keeping a group and making people loyal to you. But that kind of allowed this idea of this episodic nature of you need to do this mission to make sure that this guy's loyal to you, and a lot of choices and dialogue options. Obviously, that's kind of what the series is known for, is being able to craft your own individual storyline, your own individual character, and that's kind of shaped through your interaction with the other NPCs throughout the game. So,
Yeah.
and then Uncharted that was the only reason really I bought the PlayStation 3. Obviously, there's lots of other uh, software out there that is exclusive to the PS3. And that I'm very glad that I got a PS3 to experience. But Naughty Dog themselves, one of the best developers out there right now. And the Uncharted franchise was fantastic. It was Indiana Jones meets Tomb Raider, and the second one was really the best in the series. The mechanics of running around and exploring, and again this idea of climbing on old historical landmarks and stuff like that. I guess I just really love that. So
Yep. Yeah, that's the one series that I wish I had a PS3 to play. The Uncharted. I think that that always looks like a beautiful game.
yeah,
Yeah,
like I said, I definitely think it's something that you would enjoy, Jordan. At some point, you need to pick a PS3 up and experience it.
Well, I'm sure they'll release it for PS4.
Most likely.
all right. Next for you, Jordan.
Well, I had Mass Effect on my list too, and I do agree that 2 was paced better than the first one. When the first one came out, I was just finishing up with the Knights of the Old Republic 2 on the original Xbox,
Yeah.
and I think it's a good gateway because it's the same production team that the turn-based combat style in 1, like that was very similar to what you had in Knights of the Old Republic, but I think it was just such a long game, and exploration, the planets, it took forever to get across the planets, and there's like 2 things you have to find on an entire planet, so I'm glad they sped that up on the second one, so it was good, really good. And in the roleplay realm, I'd say Skyrim
Lost Jordan.
was a very robust game that came out, world and lots of quests and lots of things in it. I think the story is probably not as strong as Mass Effect, but for a standalone game, it's very impressive.
Yeah, you brought me a Mass Effect for my birthday a couple years ago, and I started to play the original Mass Effect, and it's a third-person shooter, and I have a terrible time aiming and keeping up with the combat in it. I'm just awful at it. In fact, I struggle with it so bad that I can't even get through the first stage. I get my ass killed every single time. If I would love to experience the story because I've heard the entire Mass Effect story is brilliant, but I I can't play it. I have just resigned myself to the fact that I am not quick enough. Uh, I can't play it. I would love to sit in and watch somebody play it though, and actually get to experience the story with someone that actually can play those damn games.
Yeah. Next time I'm over, I'll beat that first level for you.
Right on.
We'll take them out.
Well,
um,
yeah, I mean, like I said, I really enjoyed those. For as far as Skyrim is concerned, I never really was a huge fan of Oblivion. Like I said, giant open world games sometimes overwhelm me.
Mm-hmm.
So I tried to play Oblivion and was like, I don't know where I'm going. I'll run 50 yards in this direction, trying to go after one idea of what I want to do, and turn around and go
Yeah.
50 yards the other, just because I want to experience everything in the game. And in order to do that, you have to invest a massive amount of time. But I did buy Skyrim purely because I knew you could fight dragons, and I played it for about 4 hours and felt the exact same way that I did
Yeah.
about Oblivion. So I was disappointed because I know it's a fantastic game, but it just not was. It just didn't, it didn't resonate with me.
yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
it's kind of like playing an MMO almost. I mean, unless you've got a lot of time to invest in it, you're never going to get the full experience of playing any of the Elder Scroll games, really. Um,
Yeah.
Morrowind was my favorite, and I probably sank, God, probably 100 hours into Morrowind, mainly just because I was always screwing around trying to do different stuff in the game other than follow the main story.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, I'm with you. I mean, if you if you like a linear game because you like the story, you probably don't want to invest your time in the Elder Scrolls games.
Right.
Too easy to get sidetracked.
Yeah. Pretty much my day in Skyrim consists of me and my cohort crouching in the bushes, like stalking and shooting stuff in the butt. I don't know what the missions are anymore. Like I have no idea where I'm at in the world, but I know I'm going this way and no one can see me. Arrow.
It's kind of like when we started playing Red Dead, and I was just randomly shooting your guys as horses.
Yeah. Yeah. The game within the game is always better.
Yeah, so that actually brings me to my next entry, which is Star Wars: The Force Unleashed. Um, I don't know if you guys actually got a chance to play The Force Unleashed, but I had so much fun with it. Um, I enjoyed getting to go to the different worlds. I enjoyed immensely the super-powered force powers that you had access to,
Yeah.
carrying around the double lightsabers. And let me just tell you, that fucking black lightsaber that you get towards the end of the game is just cool as fuck. The effect that it gives off. Um, I enjoyed The Force Unleashed immensely.
I I thought it was a good game. I went through the first one, but it was just way too short. It was like
Oh, it's definitely
6 hours.
short. Yeah.
Yeah, 6 hours, and I beat it. And for an RPG, I want way more than that.
I mean, but to be fair, I mean, you could go back and play it a second time and have all of your powers with an increased difficulty and stuff, and continue building your character up that way.
Right, but I don't. To me, that's not the point of the game. Is I did it already. Let's do it again.
Well,
I want
there's
to see
multiple
more.
endings too, right?
Well, yeah, but it's not the. Every mission would be exactly the same though. So
Yeah, but the multiple endings is what it makes it worth playing the second time around. Have you seen both of the endings?
probably, yeah.
Justin,
I
did
don't
you
know.
ever play it?
Yeah, I played both the first and second one. In my opinion, they're pretty lackluster. Um,
I mean, I'm not calling it the greatest game
I
of all time,
was
but
I was definitely. I mean, I was looking forward to the Force Unleashed,
Yeah,
because I am, a Star Wars nerd, and everything that they released made it look really cool, even down to the stance that is it Star Killer? Is that his name in the
yeah.
game?
hmm
The stance that he
Awesome Star
has.
Wars name.
Yeah, it definitely is. Um, with his two lightsabers, like the one kind of tucked in between, in between one hand and the other.
Yeah,
Um, but I don't. I mean, like I said, I'm not saying it's the worst game of all time. It just
right.
I didn't enjoy it as much as I wanted to, and I think the story was not very compelling.
I
Yeah,
mean, it
The
had its flaws for sure.
Yeah,
The
well, I mean, like I said, the multiple endings were interesting, but I don't think anything leading up to those multiple endings, really, it didn't land in a way that I thought was super impactful. So,
right.
yeah.
but like I
The
said,
technology was kind of cool. Like some of the force powers were really nice, but
Yeah,
the second one was way worse than the
okay.
first one. I'll definitely say that, and way
yeah, I
shorter.
totally agree.
Like the second one, I think is like 3 hours long,
Yeah,
which
Oh,
yeah,
geez.
it's
yeah,
crazy.
yeah. It's stupid short, and the story isn't good. It's bad. But like as far as I mean, it has its flaws, gameplay flaws specifically. The first one, the when you're using the force to move things around and stuff, it's
Hmm.
so touchy. It's insanely difficult to get things to go where you want them to go, and in the places they're supposed to be. Uh, I had an insane amount of difficulty with that kind of stuff, but I enjoyed. I thought it was very gratifying when you uh, did the force blast and knocked folks back 30 yards with the force blast, and then come in and cut them up with the lightsaber after you did it and stuff. I thought that was incredibly gratifying.
Well, there was
Yeah.
definitely like the first moments of the game when you were able to grab a TIE fighter out of the sky and throw it at your enemies, or
Hmm.
I don't know if the first one has I know the second one does, where you can do the force choke and kill people with the force choke and stuff
Yeah,
like that. Like there are definitely parts of the game that are really cool, but like I said, as an overall experience, kind of looking at it holistically, I didn't really enjoy it all that much. So
Yeah.
fair enough.
And I'll tell you one thing, that game really turned me off of Sam. He has been showing up in everything now.
Turned you off on what now? I'm sorry. We started to lose you. Jordan, we lost you.
Uh-oh.
There you
Yeah,
go.
but
You're
that,
back now.
yeah, his I don't know, his acting is just so.
Who are we talking about?
Sam Witwer,
Okay.
the main character from Force, because he was in
Yeah.
Smallville.
yeah,
Um,
was he Doomsday in Smallville?
yeah, just that was
That is the dumbest casting
Wait, wait, wait,
decision
wait,
of all
wait, wait,
time.
wait,
yeah.
wait, wait. They had a human actor playing fucking Doomsday on Smallville.
Oh yeah,
Yeah, for
What the
sure.
fuck?
Well, I mean, he
it was
becomes Doomsday, right? To be
right.
honest, I think by that point I had stopped watching the show, but
Yeah,
I knew that he had been cast as Doomsday.
the idea of it was okay. The story was it wasn't the best story, but for Smallville, like it was pretty good. But just his acting, he was just not good at it. And I watched him in Being Human, and he was just like so emotionless. Like even in the scenes where like he's supposed to be like out of control emotionally, he's just so bland. I don't know.
Is he the werewolf in that
Now he's
show?
the vampire.
He's the vampire. Okay.
Yeah,
Yeah, I've seen a few episodes of the UK version. I've never watched the American version. So
yeah. I watched it. It was alright. It's one of those series where like you can't really pick it up in the middle. You have to start at the beginning, or else the end is not going to make any sense. It's a very crazy show. Um, Most of it was entertaining, but he rubs me the wrong way.
well, speaking of vampires, that's a pretty thinly veiled segue. Uh, considering that there is a vampire in one of my favorite games from last generation, which is Metal Gear Solid 4,
Huh.
and I'm a huge Metal Gear fanboy. I was super excited for Metal Gear Solid 4. And I will have to, disclose that I had never played any of the Metal Gear games before the hype of Metal Gear Solid 4's released. I went and got the remastered PlayStation 2 versions of all the games, and obviously the first one was PlayStation 1. But I played through 1, 2, and 3 back to back in the weeks leading up to Metal Gear Solid 4, and that experience I hold, you know, pretty dear.
Yeah, the first Metal Gear was so much fun.
Yeah, yeah. I'm sure at the time with the integration of the Psycho Manus fight and
Yes. Yes.
Hideo Kojima really, he's like him or hate him. He does some of the most interesting stuff in the medium. So, but Metal Gear Solid 4 is fantastic. It's the conclusion to the storyline, and even though now they have the Metal Gear Solid 5. But yeah, I mean, like I said, it kind of wraps up Solid Snake's story that kind of goes through the first three, and it really was fantastic and looks great and has some of the best callbacks to the old games within the game itself. If you're a fan of the first three, you would love it, and if you've never played any of them, check all four of them out.
I will say this: you have to have a lot of patience to play the Metal Gear games. Specifically the first one, just because so much stealth is involved.
Yeah, for
You
sure.
have to have a lot of patience for it.
The stealth is definitely a big part of the game, and um, it's kind of kooky. Um, like I said, Hideo Kojima, while he makes interesting stuff, it might not be totally in line with everyone's taste. It definitely was with mine, though. So,
I hope they are as good as the stealth mission in Saints Row 4.
Don't know it.
to be honest with you, I played the first few hours of Saints Row 4 and never played it again. So,
Oh, okay.
but I'm assuming that's on your list as well, Jordan.
Uh, it's a good game, but no, I didn't put it on my list.
Okay.
It's very enjoyable, but there's nothing earth-shattering about it. It's just it's a parody, open world. Um,
So what was next on your list then?
I'm done. That's
Oh,
all I
are
got.
you? Okay. Well, then I'll fire off a couple of quick hitters here real quick before I
All
get
right.
to my last one here. Um, so quick hitter Wii Sports, which
Yeah.
was what came with the Nintendo Wii when you bought the Nintendo Wii. I had an immense amount of fun with Wii Sports. Still have fun with it. I mean, my wife and I will occasionally put it in and play Wii Bowling because it's so accurate and lifelike when you actually bowl.
Yeah.
Um, I enjoy the Wii Sports game immensely, and didn't have to spend anything extra for it.
Yeah.
um, the other quick hitter on my list is NBA 2K11. It was my introduction into the 2K series, and it was introduced Michael Jordan into the series, and I had read a review once about the game and they called it the greatest basketball sim of all time, and I have to agree. Um, Even though later entries into the series have continued to improve upon the 2K series on the whole, I thought 2K11 was magnificent. I love the fact that it opened up and put you right in the middle of one of Jordan's finest moments in the playoffs. I loved the whole thing where you got to go through and replay some of Michael's greatest moments of all time. Uh, 2K11 was a blast for me, and I know Justin kind of feels the same way about it.
Right. Now that has the LeBron mode too, right?
No, not 2K11. They did do
What?
that with a later entry, right? I think they did that with 2K. Was it the most recent one? Was it
Well,
2K14?
I believe Jordan is referring to the super secret Slob
Oh, okay.
LeBron's Knob game that we referenced a few podcasts back. But that was not included in that version, although it should be in every version.
Well,
Um,
I just know the argument is always that Michael Jordan's okay, but he's nowhere near as good as LeBron. is what people tell me.
I don't think very many people tell you that, Joe.
No one ever talks to me about
I
basketball.
might be one that says that. Although I really don't say that either. Michael Jordan, is
Right.
the best basketball player of all time, and
Oh
2K11
yeah,
was
we got it on record.
fantastic. That's not to say that he can't be unseated from that position, and we'll see. In 7 or 8 years, maybe LeBron will be to the level where he can. But the 2K11 entry into the 2K NBA series was fantastic, and the Michael Jordan mode in it was just a blast to play, and it had all of the best memorable moments from Michael Jordan's career. So I agree with you, Mike. Definitely needs to be mentioned when you're talking about the sports games that were included last year
Or you mean
or
from last generation?
last generation.
Yeah, yeah.
So
Um, that's all for my quick hitters here. I've got one last game on my list. I don't know where you're at, Justin. What do you got, man?
well, let me just kind of polish my list off here, and I'll just throw them out here, kind of rapid fire. And if you guys have any thoughts, we can definitely kind of go further into them. Um, the first two are Wii games, the only Wii games that made my list beyond Wii Sports, like you said, Mike, are the two Super Mario Galaxy games, and New Super Mario Brothers Wii. Um, no Zelda games on there, although Twilight Princess technically could be on there. I played it on GameCube, um, so I don't know if that necessarily counts. But I'm a big Mario fan, and Galaxy and Galaxy 2 might be some of the best Mario games that have ever been released. Other than that, the Wii could never have been released, and I would be happy with it.
Yep.
So, but the actual first, like you said, Wii Sports and the experience that you have when you first unbox that, short of holding the box up and saying "Wii" when you bring it home,
That's right.
was wholly unique and definitely was an experience that I've never had before. I mean, I brought it home. My parents were downstairs watching us play. They took the controller. They played it with us,
Hmm.
and that's something that's totally different than trying to call my mom and be like, "Hey, mom, check out this sweet headshot that I got on Call of Duty." She's like,
Right.
"Okay, yeah." So, like I said, just to throw those out there to be mentioned in this conversation, I think that they absolutely need to be involved. And then GTA 4 and 5.
Yeah, yeah.
While I'm not a huge fan of the storytelling that's contained within them,
Hmm.
GTA 4 when it came out, just the realization of a gigantic open world, a gigantic city, and then 5 obviously further than that.
Yep.
Just it's crazy on a technical level the stuff that they were able to pull off in both of those games.
Yes.
And then Call of Duty 4, Modern Warfare, the first really big,
Yep.
breakout multiplayer. This is what kind of spawned the Call of Duty craziness that we
Yeah.
live in today.
Yep.
But the storyline is the thing that I'm most interested in, and it really kind of set up the template for the way that Call of Duty games function from here on out.
Yep. Because they have not changed.
And then, like I said, I had a whole bunch of indie games on my list, but I guess I could just wrap those all into an idea of the fact that Xbox Live and PlayStation Network and the integration of digital distribution, and the accessibility of smaller developers being able to develop games at a lower price point and distribute those to people within the console space. Obviously, PC has been doing that for ages, but there just wasn't that availability to kind of reach out into that crowd until this newest iteration of, until last generation kind of realized its potential, and it got there. Like I said, games like Braid, Limbo, uh, Super Meat Boy. There's a ton of them that are on my list that I absolutely love, and were some of my best experiences through the last generation. Over and above a lot of the the AAA titles that we've talked about tonight. But the one game that I definitely want to mention in earnest
This might be the same one that's on my list, so we'll
is
see.
Bioshock.
Oh no, no.
It is Bioshock to me is one of the best games I've ever played. Not only mechanically speaking, it's a ton of fun, but as I've discussed in the past, the narrative of video games are usually the reason that I come to the medium. I want a good story, and Bioshock has that in spades. From the opening of the game, with all of its mystery and intrigue, to the twist that's at the end, which the twist itself speaks to the nature of video games and the nature of storytelling. It really, like I said, it is on my favorite games of all time, within the top 10, possibly within the top 5. Ask me any other day, and the numbers will probably change as to where it falls on that list. But it is fantastic, and truly was one of the best experiences that I had with the last console in a generation. And led to Infinite, which I love Infinite as well, but it just did not hit me the way that Bioshock did. So
Is BioShock done in the is the original BioShock done in the steampunk that it looks like Infinite is done in?
I mean, it kind of is. I mean, the idea is that there's this underwater world, back, within the 60s or 70s, that this kind of mad genius has created, with tonics that grant people superpowers, and it plays with, Ayn Randian ideals, and like I said, the twist in the game is, you know, better than the twist in Memento, better than the twist in The Sixth Sense. Like the actual ideas that the game plays with are far and above how great the rest of the game is, but the rest of the game is absolutely fantastic. So I couldn't recommend it more highly. If you've never played through it, you need to experience it. So
Is it a first person shooter?
it is a first person shooter,
Yeah, I probably
unfortunately.
won't be playing it, unfortunately. I probably won't be playing it. I'll have to look into it, or maybe catch somebody else play it sometime. But it's always interested me because I love steampunk, and it looks like those games are very much steeped in steampunk.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, definitely for sure. It's not entirely steampunk, but it definitely has steampunk elements involved in the actual aesthetics of the game.
Right on.
Yep.
Well, I guess
It always looked weird to me.
uh, did you play Infinite, Jordan?
No, I haven't played any of them.
Okay. Yeah, so I guess that leaves us just with one last game, and I'm really surprised this one wasn't on Justin's list, knowing how much he actually loves it. Um, Last game on my list is The Last of Us on PS3. Um, just an unbelievable video gaming experience. We've talked about it in brief on the podcast before about how great the experience actually is. Visceral. The combat in the game is absolutely visceral. Um, the storyline is gorgeous. I mean, truly, it is. It probably is the and was the last great game on the previous generation's consoles. Um, the characters are memorable. Um, the locales are beautifully designed and detailed. Um, the survival piece of the game is beautifully done. I mean, if you're going to do kind of the whole zombie outbreak kind of thing, I mean, The Last of Us just blew it out of the water, man. They knocked it right out of the park.
Yeah, I mean, I would argue that it's the best game of all time. Um, Certainly my favorite game. And as I've said in the past, the story, the narrative of games are why I'm drawn to, the games that really speak and resonate with me. And the game itself, it's a masterpiece. It is exceptional. It is a head and shoulders above every other game that I've ever played. And I hope that other designers and developers aspire to delivering an experience like The Last of Us delivered. I talked about Bioshock and how that deserves a spot on my list, but Last of Us is higher than Bioshock. I didn't include it on my list, and I don't know why. I don't know why it slipped my mind. Um, but it is fantastic. It is a triumph. It is a beacon in the darkness that is, well, oftentimes the shitty stories that are told in video games, and it should be upheld. Every game should be compared to it, and every game pretty much pales in comparison to the achievement that Naughty Dog was able to, press on a disc. I I absolutely love the game, and if you want to talk about something that encapsulates, because obviously it's going to be one of the last games that you know is synonymous with last generation, and it is a great capstone. It is a great swan song for the last generation to see what they were able to achieve, and hopefully it speaks to broader horizons for this next generation. So,
Yeah, I mean, I there's not enough superlatives in the English language to describe this game. Um, I just, I love it. I love it from start to finish. And let me, if for anyone out there that has not played The Last of Us, do yourself a favor. Go out and pick it up and just play through the opening like 5 to 10 minutes of the game. And if you are not hooked by the end of the first 5 to 10 minutes, uh, then I don't know, man. It just the opening 5 to 10 minutes of the game is such an emotional train ride. It's so intense. It's never been done in video games before. The whole thing plays out beautifully like a movie. Um, yeah, I can't say enough great things about it. Justin, do you think that it deserves a sequel?
I don't know. It's hard to say. Deserves probably
Doesn't need, I
warrants
guess, is
warrants probably
yes.
not.
Yeah, I agree. I think it needs to be left as a
Yeah.
standalone game.
I mean, I wouldn't mind seeing another story crafted within the same universe.
Yes,
Hmm.
but
Um,
it shouldn't touch with the same characters.
but the story of Joel and Ellie, in and of itself, from start to finish, it's a whole story. There's not really much more that you can do that the game hasn't done. I mean, like I said, if they made a second one, I'm sure it would be fantastic. If they included the same characters in it, I'm sure I would like it a whole lot. But if you were to come to me today and say, "Do you want to greenlight a sequel to this game?" I would say probably not. They're just, like I said, there's no reason necessarily for it. It achieved what it needed to achieve, and that was, to be the best video game of all time, in my opinion. So,
Absolutely. Absolutely. So, with that being said, I think we're closing up on a point where we can probably wrap this thing up here. Does anybody else have anything at this point?
I was just thinking with the talk of that sequels, I'm really surprised games don't make more um, sequels just with different stories. I know like Saints Row, the third and the fourth, um, the map is the same, the story is the same, the characters are actually the same, but they are separate stories, and they came out like a year apart. You would think that developers would do more of that because it's got to be so much easier when you have a world already set to just you know crank out a brand new game that's got a story just as good as the first one, just different with new characters or the same. Why aren't we seeing more of that?
well, I would, put forth the idea that it's because most game developers are lazy.
Right, but that
and
to me
and the
that seems like the
easiest
ultimate lazy.
well, but really the ultimate lazy is to use the same characters and
Right.
not push beyond that narrative that you already have to build on from the first game, right?
Yeah,
Some properties lend themselves to a trilogy aspect. Like I said, the Mass Effect franchise. It was conceived and wrote with hooks and ideas about it being a three-part story.
Right.
So there's absolutely, there's no comparison between that and, uh, you know, I can't even think of one right off the top of my head of using the exact same shit and then just like I said, unfortunately, when we talk about Madden at some point, I know me and Mike are going to probably pod about Madden specifically. You're
Yeah.
talking about you're talking about taking the same shit, putting some sugar on top of it, and saying, "Isn't that great shit?" And
Yeah. You got
uh,
me.
unfortunately, most of the public goes out and eats that shit and says it's fantastic, right?
Yeah.
I mean, it's the easiest way to, you don't have to do a whole bunch of marketing if it's already built upon a franchise that people like and you use the same characters. You don't have to build up that backstory. You don't have to account for this massive development time. And like I said, I think a lot of times it speaks to, you know, the nature of the beast. It's easier to kind of push forward with the story that you've already developed than to go back to square one and think of a unique or interesting way to explore the world that's already been fleshed out. And also, most worlds aren't as fleshed out as The Last of Us.
yeah.
The Last of Us would be a really
Sure.
easy world to kind of tell another story in. Other games maybe not so much.
It's kind of the whole Final Fantasy sequel argument too. They started doing sequels to Final Fantasy games with Final Fantasy X. They did a 10-2, and since then they've done they did the whole prequels to the Final Fantasy VII. They've done two sequels to Final Fantasy 13. They had a whole universe of games built around Final Fantasy 12 and Ivalice. Um, it just it feels lazy. It really does.
Well, and
I mean,
Right.
not to mention lazy, but fucking stupid. As a nerd, as a geek, I want to evangelize the things that I like to other people. And
yes,
a lot of times when I want to talk about a comic book series to someone, I have to constantly caveat everything that I say or constantly apologize and say, I know this is silly, but I know this is silly, but. But when I tell somebody that there is a game that is entitled Final Fantasy 13 2, what in the ever living shit is that?
yeah.
Who in the fuck?
Square's
I mean,
mad
and I
about that.
understand that it is a Japanese company and that there are gigantic cultural differences, and so maybe in Japanese culture that makes sense. But in American culture, it makes no fucking sense. When you
Yeah,
tell somebody that, they look at you and they say, it breaks their mind to say, and then you have to say, well, there's a 13 universe, and this is the second iteration or the prequel to the game that's set in that 13 universe. But then, like you said, I mean, there's been 70 different Final Fantasy games. I mean, to try to dive in and try to make somebody understand exactly what it is just insane. Now that's all beyond the idea of making a story or developing a video game. But I wanted to comment on the absolute absurdity of having a game entitled Final Fantasy X 2.
yeah,
Okay.
yeah. Not to mention the game was bad. So, but yeah, we'll move on beyond that. Anybody got anything else?
I don't think so.
I
I
think
mean,
that
I think looking at last generation, just kind of as a summarization,
Hmm.
you know, it's easy to say it was the best generation of all time. because it was the most recent generation, right? So, I mean, the fact is, it really was. If you take it in context, it's the most advanced technology. Some of the best games of all time were included and released during that time period, and I'm happy that it was my actual the biggest amount of time that I was able to experience, and that I was able to actually be an active part within the generation. So
Yep. Yeah, no doubt. If anybody out there has played most of the games that we've talked about, you are winning at life.
You're Charlie Sheen, in other words.
Definitely.
Winning.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Yeah, well, I think with that said, we'd like to thank you very much for listening. And on behalf of Justin and Jordan, I'm Mike saying take care, and we'll see you next time.